Hi, everybody. Welcome to Discover College Soccer. I am lucky enough today to be joined by Coach John from Lynn University Women's Program. Coach, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Matt.
Oh, thanks for being here. So let's just jump right in. You guys are Division II program here in Florida. What when do you start looking at players? What year in high school? When do you start hearing from players when they're reaching out to you?
Yeah, I think everybody's different. Everybody's process is different. We get emails from eighth graders, and we get emails from girls that send an introductory email in May going of their senior year. So and everything in between. So everybody's a little process is a little different. And for us, we just kind of file them away, and we have this time clock that is always moving, and we have to decide certain points. Okay, what are our true needs for a certain class, and then we go revisit maybe emails from that class. And every year is different. The transfer portal's really changed a lot. We've had to be really adaptable with that. There's been a lot more interest from international students, which are usually later. They usually don't figure it out until the year before they want to go. But for us, we generally try to start speaking to kids and getting them on campus their junior year in high school. I think that's where they're at the maturity level that the decision and the weight of the decision where they're going to go really sits well with them, and we're able to kind of get to know the character of the player as much as a soccer player.
Oh, that's great. So how many inbound contacts would you say you get in an average week? I know it ebbs and flows but
I would say on a normal week, probably 50 to 80. I would say a week prior to an event, we're looking at probably 200 to 300. Yeah, I mean it's from everywhere. There's some great agencies out there that help international kids. There's some great agencies that help American players, and sort of if we count those, then my numbers are accurate because they're constantly sending us a player profile or things like that. And it's very hard to cipher through all of them because everybody, even at our level, everybody wants to have a home and wants to be wanted, I guess, to be the right way to say it.
Sure, absolutely. Well, you mentioned internationals, you mentioned the transfer portal. So, I look at your roster, you got a nice sprinkle of international students on there, as most Division II programs tend to have these days. How does the transfer portal and looking internationally figure into your overall process? How are you kind of mixing that in?
We're kind of learning as we go with this because it's all really new. For our level, we get a lot of transfers because big Division I schools will take a chance on a kid. Maybe they pan out. If it's a state school, it doesn't cost the kid a lot of money to go and try to either walk on or be on a small scholarship at a big program. And then when it doesn't work out, they're looking, they just spent a whole year not touching the field really. And so now they're looking to really fall back in love with the game and want to, play more of a prominent role in a program. And so we get a lot of those type of kids. And especially with COVID, and, I'm not speaking for other programs, but I saw kind of a trend where there were bigger rosters. Division I schools were taking more players because they didn't want to miss out on somebody. And now the fallout of that is a lot of these kids in the transfer portal and things like that. And so, but for us, and I'm not saying we're doing it the right way. This is how we kind of do it. We try to keep a good balance. I think it's important to have kids that come into your program as freshmen and grow through the program. I think it's important to always inject some maturity, some older players into it every year. Your team culture is going to change every year, so you might as well embrace that by adding some loud, personalities and stuff, and kind of letting the chips fall where they're supposed to. And then I think the other piece is the international kids bring just a different culture to your team, and so we try to keep a balance between, I'd say, those three areas. Older graduate kids maybe, because a lot of kids are getting that year back because of the pandemic. they're able to go and play another year and do grad school. So, but we try to keep a balance. We're not trying to put all our chips in one area.
Yeah. So when you are looking at the domestic side of things and looking at those incoming freshmen and or soon to be freshmen, where do you like to go recruiting in terms of tournaments? What are kind of the ones you definitely are on your checklist each year to go see players?
Yeah, I'm involved with an ECNL club, so I'd be out of line if I didn't say it. We go to all the ECNL events. But and again, ECNL's done a phenomenal job at building a platform where all the best players predominantly are in one area. And so it's great for college coaches who don't have huge budgets to go and kind of get the most bang for your buck. And that's just the truth of it. But we go all over. Me and my assistant Eric are really big on relationships with clubs. And I mean, Eric goes out to Seattle every year because he's got a close friend out there that he's met through the soccer world. And we're hoping to get a player out of there. We have good contacts in Georgia. My family's from Kansas City, and I grew up in Birmingham, Alabama, so I have contacts in both those areas. And then one of the big ones we actually use a lot is our players, former clubs and things like that. If we have a good environment here and the kid's happy, then we call in that club and or they give a good review to younger players. So we have a lot of kids from the New Jersey, Connecticut area, the New England region, and we try to touch on those. So we don't discriminate against anybody. If they're interested in coming to Boca Raton, Florida, and they're good enough, we're going to talk to them.
No, that's great. What about camps? How do those fit into your recruiting, whether it's your own camps or your staff being at other people's camps? How much is that kind of weigh into how you see players?
I would say that's, especially for the domestic players, that's a big part. We do, when I say Eric goes out to Seattle or Georgia or something, he's going out there and doing an ID camp. We're big on recruiting, especially for domestic kids. It's when you come in as 18 years old in college, and it's a big change, and so it's important that we're recruiting character kids that are going to come in and want to be here for the right reasons and things like that. And those ID camps where you get to spend hours just joking with kids on the sideline and really getting to know their personality in a training session. I think they're probably some of the best pieces you can do. I always work some of the bigger colleges like UCF, camp every summer, and we always find somebody at an ID camp somewhere that just maybe fell into the radar or they're young and we're like, okay, this is a relationship we want to continue to have as we get closer to them being a recruitable age or something like that. But I think they're a really, really important part. It's good for the youth kid too, because you want to get to know your coach. And so for us, we're trying to start some ID camps. The pandemic kind of set us back. Our school didn't allow us to do it. But now we are. And so we're trying to get those back going, hopefully starting this summer. For us, it's a opportunity for them to, again, just do what I said, come in and meet us, meet some of the players that'll work the camp, see the campus, things like that. And, really get to vet us just as much as us vetting them as players.
Makes sense. What do you like to see in that first communication from a player in terms of what information, what they're reaching out, what stands out? Yeah.
Like an email?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think the simpler, the better. I always make this joke when I give college talks to youth kids is like, we don't care that you started soccer at 4 years old. Like, who didn't? And we don't care about your whole life story or how many goals you scored when you're U12. Like, we need to know your number. We need to know what events you're going to be at. We need to know you're actually interested in our school with some kind of little personal something like, hey, I'm really interested in your business program. If you go, hey, I'm really interested in your amazing nursing school at Lynn. Well, we don't have a nursing school, so you clearly didn't send that to the right school. So something personal, name, number, club team, and events. And that's really it, because we get so many of them. I mean, I always say this, the more information you can put in the subject line, probably the better, because we're going to look at the subject, and if we can learn everything about you in one subject, you go into this file, and we contact you, at this time or this way or whatever. So
that makes sense. So if you're, you've got an email from a kid, you're going to go to this ECNL event, probably down the street from me here at Premier, and you're watching players. What is your hierarchy of things you're looking at? What are the on the field, off the field attributes that you got to make sure a player ticks off for you to want to continue talking to them?
yeah, I think for me, like a work rate's really important. Like you can't teach kids to work hard. They either do it or they don't by that level. And I think the defending side of the game is really important, no matter what position you play. At the college level, you don't get put on the field if there's a possibility you're going to be, liability defensively, whether you're, a goal scorer or a center back, or anything in between. So I think that's a big part of it. And then just the way you interact with your teammates and the referees, I think that matters. You're at an event, that you're being recruited and you're seen by college coaches, and you're still kind of mouthing off to the referee, like, who are you when no one is looking? Then is kind of the question we ask. And if that's who you are when people are looking, then that worries us a little bit from a character standpoint. But yeah, and then the other part, we do a lot of like comparing to what we have currently. So if we're looking at a winger, are you as good or better than what we already have, currently on our roster? And if you are, great, we'll continue to, pursue you as a recruit. And if not, or maybe you have the potential to get there, then it's something we also look at. But that's from the pure soccer side, and that's probably the last piece we really look at.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you guys are Division II, so you've got some athletic money, and I'm sure a lot of your recruits are probably on some sort of academic money or other scholarships, grants as well. So what is the overall scholarship picture look like for a typical Lynn soccer player?
Yeah, I mean, our kids are on different size scholarships, depending on, it's really like need based for us. A fully funded Division II program is 9.9 scholarships. So that's not even a full starting lineup. So a lot of academic money. I strongly encourage, in Florida, we have what's called Bright Futures, where it's just like community service. These kids can get, a chunk of $5,000 to $7,000, I think, something like that, towards their tuition. Grades are important because we give out merit scholarships that we can stack athletic money on there. And so that's kind of the last conversation we have with kids. We want them to fall in love with the school and our program and our staff, and we want to fall in love with them. And then at the end, it's like, okay, what's a number we can really make this work, honestly. And that's kind of how we tackle scholarships. Sometimes kids come in, they're like, look, I need everything paid for. And then it's like, all right, we're going to evaluate if you're capable of being that to us. And if not, we'll move on. So like I said, every process and every conversation is different with each kid. It's always unique. So, but that's kind of how it works. It's not like we just give out big scholarships and hope the player's good enough when they get here.
Yeah, it's not Division I football, right? Well, let's talk about the school some. You mentioned Lynn's in Boca, but if you're outside of Florida, maybe you haven't heard of Lynn. So I can go to the website, find out all kinds of stuff. Like you don't have a nursing program, but what are some of the cool, awesome things about Lynn that I'm not going to learn about just being on the website?
Yeah, we're a really innovative school. The kids get an iPad when they come here as a freshman. There's no books. It's all done on the iPad or through through the learning portals. Um, let's see. I mean, we're 10 minutes from the beach, which I think is really cool. You know, the school's constantly growing. We're building a new dorm right now. We're building a new wellness center where we're going to have a nutritionist. We're going to have sports psychologists, things like that, to really help our student athletes, but also our student body as well. What I love about Lynn is they do such a great job of helping kids get to that next piece of their life. You know, finding careers and things like that with, you know, we have so many companies. I mean, things like Netflix and Amazon Prime. We have great relationships with companies like that where we help kids find entry-level jobs after they graduate here with degrees and stuff. And I think I don't know compared to who, but I haven't been in a university that does such an amazing job of helping kids find. I mean, I kind of look at it like this: international kids that come here it's really hard for them to not find something to be able to stay in the United States and get a job and sponsorship for a visa and things like that. So our school does a phenomenal job of that piece. And then, I mean, I haven't heard anybody talk bad about our cafeteria. It's probably one of the best I've ever seen. So they do a phenomenal job there, and they cater. I mean, they do so well. We get them to cater meals for our team and stuff all the time.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good for sure. You mentioned the academics piece and that kind of thing. So how specifically at Lynn do the students really balance that soccer and school kind of thing? What support systems are there in place at the school to help them on their academic journey?
Yeah, so we and again, I use the word innovative. Our school's very innovative. When COVID hit, they adopted what's called block scheduling. Block scheduling is where you take a class for 4 weeks. So there's block A, B, C, and D. And so you'll take a class for 4 weeks, and then you're done with that class. And so, whereas instead of taking 5 or 6 classes throughout a semester, where you could have a week where all your exams pile up, if you're a student athlete, you got soccer, you got 1 or 2 classes that you really focus on, you know, and that's it in terms of, you know, responsibilities and time management. So it really allows the kids to focus on the class they're on, you know, and then when that one's done, they get to move on to the next one. And it also helps us track progress throughout a semester. And so if a kid doesn't do very well in block A and they have a big load in block B, okay, let's not take as big a load there, and let's maybe add a class here where block B you didn't have a lot. And, it allows us to check up on them because you know, periodically throughout it. But we also get, you know, we have academic advisors, we have free tutoring, all that kind of stuff for our student athletes. You know, it's hard to not be successful here at Lynn because of the support that you have. You know, I get weekly emails with attendance. You know, we're really big. Our program is really big on study hall if you need it, but we're kind of more, we lean more towards the accountability part. Like if you're good in the classroom, and we predominantly recruit good students, and if you're doing the right things in the classroom and you're studying the right ways and you're getting the grades, like we're not going to bother you. You can continue to do the thing, whatever your habits are working. So who am I to tell you how to study? But at the same time, we have all these other things. And when a kid is struggling, we get them into study hall, we get them with tutors and things like that to help. But I like to brag about the block scheduling because it really is a different way to do it. I think it's really relative to, you know, a job in the real world. You know, you get a project, you got to work through that project. When that's done, the next one's on, instead of working on 7 different things at the same time. And I think, you know, the way things are now, it's harder for kids to focus on 5, 6 different things at once, instead of getting a task done and then moving to the next one. And that was something they came up with because of COVID. And the idea or the premise originally was that they didn't want students interacting with 4 or 5 different groups of other students throughout the week. They wanted them just interacting with 1 or 2 students. So you can take one or two classes a block, depending on what they want. But it's pretty cool. They don't have classes on Fridays. It's just for labs or just time to catch up on your classes. And so I think it's a really cool and different way that we do academics here.
Absolutely. So let's talk about that more in the guise of in the soccer season. So what does a typical week look like for a soccer player with that block scheduling from kind of the time they wake up to the time they go to bed with games and practices intermixed?
Yeah, so there's different blocks in the day where so like 8 to 10:30 is a class time, and then there's a break between 10:30 and noon for like lunch or whatever. And so we kind of steal that break and do our practice. So what we do usually is we'll start training around 9:30. We end around 11. It still gives them enough time. And then we just encourage the girls not to take 8 a.m. classes. And so a typical day for a women's soccer player would be get up, get your breakfast, get in the training room if you need training is about 11, grab some lunch. And then most of them will have a class that starts at noon to about 12:30, noon to about 2:30. So classes are in blocks of 2.5 hours. Most of them don't run that long. Professors don't want to be in there that long either, but a lot of it is done online as well. And then if you take a second class, there's 2 other blocks later. So it just depends on what your class schedule is, but most of them will have training, then they'll have 1 class, and then they're done for the day.
So you guys are, I think you're in the Sunshine State Conference, right? Yep.
Yep.
So mostly Florida, if not all Florida conference teams there.
Actually,
Yeah. So, but Florida's a big state. Most people don't, especially when you're down in Boca. So besides your Florida games and your non-conference games, what's your typical kind of travel radius? How does traveling fit into the academics and all that kind of thing?
Yeah, good question. The our schools professors are great. They're super supportive of our athletics. A lot of the people that work in Lynn, higher up in the administrative roles, were athletes at Lynn at one point, which is really cool. So they support a lot of that kind of stuff. If they're missing exams to make it up, if we're going to the national tournament, we're going for a week. They'll allow somebody on our staff to proctor a test. But with the innovative ways Lynn does things, most of it can be done online. The kids just need an hour of silence somewhere to do it. We haven't had a problem with a travel or anything like that, but our conference is all in Florida, so most of it's a day travel. Occasionally, if we go over to like Tampa, we'll go over and stay the night before. But they don't miss a lot of school in terms of in-conference travel. It's postseason stuff and non-conference travel, which is probably a sum of maybe 3 or 4 weeks in total that they would miss a day or 2 here.
Yeah.
Here or there. So yeah.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the team and the soccer side of things a bit. How many players do you like to keep on your roster? What's kind of your ideal size? And are you big enough where you got a JV reserve side, or you just got the one, or how does that work?
We don't have a JV reserve side or anything like that. At our level, it's very, very equatable to a Division I program in terms of resources, in terms of the training, in terms of the commitment to time-wise to the program and things like that. Roster size, we try to stay between 26 and 30 because of some of our seniors that have wanted to come back for another year. We've gotten a little bigger. I think we were at 34 last year. We'll probably be around 31 or 32 this year. So big rosters. It's tough because 2/3 of your team's sitting on the bench at any moment. But that's why we put a big emphasis on team culture and things like that, and understanding that whatever your role is that you're asked to play on the day, that you do it to the best of your ability and be a good teammate through it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, what about your staff? You mentioned Eric. How big is your overall staff? What role does everybody play? Are there other support staff in the athletic department that contribute? How does that look?
Yeah, we have myself and my assistant Eric, and then we'll have a goalkeeper coach. We had one last year. We're currently looking to find a new one because she's unavailable. We're looking to add a volunteer assistant as well, with a couple of people in mind. So usually we have a staff of 4 soccer coaches. Then we have our athletic trainer. Then we have our strength and conditioning coach, and that's it, I think. So those six people. Usually our strength coach won't travel with us. He'll be at all our home games, but just because he has to deal with other sports too. He doesn't just do women's soccer. But if we get a postseason, things like that, he'll travel with us. So
That's good. Well, how would you describe, your style of coaching, your team style of play?
yeah, that's a great question. I'm trying to answer that right now, I think.
Adaptive then.
Yeah, adaptive. That's actually the word we use a lot. We our conference is really tough. There's a lot of different styles in our conference. There's a lot of very good coaches in our conference and some phenomenal players. And so I think it's a lot of fun because every year is a little different, and whatever kind of plan we have usually never is the plan that we end up going into a season. But for us, we're trying to really put in some principles of play that are non-negotiables, is what we call them. And so defensively, we want to be a team that works really hard. We want to be somebody that plays kind of in your face soccer and not allowing you to, kind of do the things you want to do as an opponent. And then when we have the ball, we talk a lot about valuing the ball and possession with a purpose. We want to be a team that develops attacks, not just wait for a mistake from the other team, and kind of be a little more self-sustainable. So again, me and Eric have only been here for one fall, which was last fall, due to the pandemic. But I'm going into my 3rd year here, and I've done coach 1 season. But last year we really learned that it's tough to be, it's tough to not be somebody that can control the tempo of a game. And so we're working really hard this spring on growing that part of our game. So I would say very possession oriented team, but we talk a lot about having a purpose with possession. And we use buzzwords like, being brave with your passes. Like, don't just be the girl trying not to make a mistake, be the player that's okay with a mistake and you're taking chances. And then when the mistakes are made, who are you in that next moment? We talk a lot about that, defining yourself by the person right after the mistake.
No, I love that. Well, you mentioned spring, it's off season time. So what does your typical off season look like?
Oh man, we love to play tough games. So we just played the University of Miami. That was a lot of fun. I'd do it again. So we had some freshmen out there that maybe got 90 minutes all season, starting against an ACC powerhouse. And so it was a lot of fun, though. The girls had a good experience. We played well, got beat up on a little bit, but those kind of games, I mean, I feel bad for Miami because I think we got a lot more out of it than they did. But we like to play games like that. We'll go play FIU, so a couple of Division I teams. We'll play some teams in our conference. I think it's important that some of our younger kids in the spring that didn't get minutes in the fall get to experience, what it is like to play against a Nova, play against a Florida Tech, things like that. And then we try and squeeze in one other game. I think we play St. Thomas, which is a really good NAI school down here. So we have lots of options down here in terms of spring games. We try not to travel too far because it doesn't make any sense. FAU, a great Division I program right across the street, always plays us usually. And I mean, their campus is a mile away from ours. And so we try to get a lot of those games and just get our girls in situations where we can challenge those things. For us, the spring is not very result oriented. It's a lot about development and growth. And, at our level, we have a lot of players that are here for, it didn't work out at a Division I level, or, they didn't get an opportunity to maybe go to their dream school. And then Lynn became their dream school, right? That's how we say it. But so it's a lot of fun to in the spring to kind of say, hey, look, this is part of your game that if you just really work on it, you can go from being, this barely coming off the bench player to maybe a an impact player. And so we dive into our players individually a lot in the spring. They enjoy that because a lot of the ones that we get to dive into maybe weren't getting that kind of attention in the fall season. So we value that a lot. And I always tell this story. I love the story of the kid where next fall one of the other coaches comes up to me and is like, who's that? I'm like, yeah, she was on my bench all last year. You should have seen her in the spring though. I like telling that story rather than like, look at this monster we recruited from this amazing school. And so our staff really values developing those kind of kids and stuff. And we always use the phrase trust the process. Everyone has their own process, and just because you're not a starter as a freshman doesn't mean you can't be one as a sophomore. But it takes what it takes, I think, sometimes. And so
No, it's good stuff.
And yeah.
Well, we've talked a lot, covered a lot of ground here. Last question for you is my catch-all here. What didn't we talk about? What else would you like prospects, parents, anybody to know about your team, your school, or anything else that we didn't cover?
Yeah, I would just say, own your own process in the recruiting part of it. And you only get to play college soccer once. And so, really kind of have a good conversation with yourself and understand that your experience is your experience. It's not, your club teammates. It's not your high school teammates. It's not your parents. It's not your club coaches. It's your experience. And I always tell recruits, like, you got to figure out what you want out of it, and then go figure out where that is and how you can get it. And, we have some kids. I mean, it could be anything. If kids want to go professional, they go professional from Division II all the time. If a kid wants to go and have a great experience and doesn't really mind whether they play or not, but they want that status of Division I, there's probably a Division I team out there that'll put you on the roster. So it's all about figuring out what you want out of the experience, and then drawing the path to get to it, and using the resources and the people you have around you to help you. But I would say don't look at Division II schools as the second tier. And we play and beat Division I teams all the time. And so it's important that you find what kind of experience you want. If you want a big school, we're not a big school. If you want something that, if you want a place that someone's going to take care of you, and if you get behind in classes, the professor already knows your name. You're not in a class of 200 people. That kind of experience is great, and sometimes that's what people need or want. And don't be afraid to look at smaller schools and stuff like that. But I think it's really just about owning your own process and understanding what you need to do to get what you want out of it, and being truthful with yourself, that I think is important.
Absolutely. Well, Coach, appreciate the time. Wish you the best of luck in the fall. And if you're at Eckerd, I might have to drive up and check out that game, since it's just down the street from us. But good luck, and thanks for being on.
All right, thanks, Matt. Take care.
Thanks.